Hello, superheroes of the project management world. Welcome to Project Insight's professional development series. Today's session, Understanding Program and Portfolio Management Strategies, will help you define projects, programs, and portfolios and understand their unique roles within a growing organization. This session is perfect for program and portfolio managers, project managers, and business leaders looking to increase their strategic impact and gain practical insights for smoother coordination across initiatives. Before we dive in, here are a few housekeeping items. Everyone will be on mute. We do encourage you to use the chat to engage with us. Feel free to say hi there now. Drop any questions along the way. Today's session is valid for one PDU, but you must attend the end of the webinar to receive credit. You will get your code and certificate before the end of the week. This recording will also be accessible to watch again right here on the link that you joined with. So let me introduce our experts. First, we've got Steve West. Steve has spent the last 2+ decades helping organizations make their work life easier as the founder of Project Insight. Project Insight is an award-winning online project management tool. Our mission is to automate your work, unify your data, and make your life easier. Please reach out and let us know how we can help you manage projects, programs, or portfolios within our tool. Alongside Steve, we have Diane Buckley-Alwies. Diane is a seasoned PMP, the CEO of Core Performance Concepts, the author of multiple books, a consultant, and more. We're really excited to dive in on today's topic. Steve and Diane, are you ready to get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Wonderful.
This is always a great topic.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say about it too. So welcome everybody, and looking forward to talking about projects and programs and portfolios and helping you understand the differences between them, as well as how to leverage them more strategically in your organization, and how portfolio management really differs significantly from the concepts of project and programs. So basically what we want to do is start with just a couple definitions. So we want to talk about the general differences between projects, programs, and portfolios, and then we'll delve down deeper and see how we can support them in the Project Insight tool. So projects, as many of you PMPs that are here
on, we have some experts on. So we have some expert customers on. So
I know. Project is a unique one-time endeavor. We should have left this blank. And then let them answer the question. What is a project? But bottom line, it's a singular activity that has a specific objective or a couple specific objectives. It could be revenue production, it could be efficiencies, but they are kind of singular activities to deliver on something. You might be implementing a new client. You might be modifying or changing a particular feature in the system. You might be doing a bug fix. That's an example of a small project. And all projects create change. So we are in the change business in our roles in our organizations. Now, programs are a bit different. It's a collection of those related projects. So you might have, one good topic out there today is just AI, right? I may want to think about how we're going to implement AI in our organization. And you can have projects associated with, do I have the right resources in the organization? It's not a technical project, but it's a organizational project on how do I have the right resources to be able to support what I want to do. You might have a project out there on a group of people that are tasked with doing some R&D as to what can be done. And you might have some technical or some more tactical tasks with regard to how do I implement AI in my organization. And all those things have to be worked together for you to be able to actually see the results. One of those projects by itself doesn't necessarily provide results to the organization, but it's the collection of those projects together that adds the value. And there's going to be interdependencies between those projects. And that's the big difference between a project, an individual project, and a program. When you have multiple projects having to work in conjunction with each other to deliver on an expected outcome.
And I think another really good thing to consider a program would be like if you're a software company and you're making a product,
Mm-hmm.
and I know other tools like Jira and DevOps call them projects, but those are really programs because they're ongoing.
Yeah, and that's a really great point, because if you think about the whole product management life cycle, where you have a concept and you have growth, and then you're enhancing it over the course of its lifetime, and then at some point in time it becomes obsolete. That is a life cycle that has multiple projects in it, as one large program, which is that particular product.
Right, and nowadays these software tools don't generally, in the 90s or whatever, you might have a project be, we're going to deliver a product and sell it and then put it on a disk and send it out to you, but that's not what people do anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
they're micro changes, monthly changes. So then it's hard to get one, each release is like essentially a project.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely. And then we have a concept of portfolios. I'm not going to get really deep into this at this point in time, but I'll give you some highlights. When you think about an organization, the overall organization, there is each year, maybe you put a 3-year plan together, maybe you put a 5-year plan together. You're developing a strategy to grow that organization, and you're going to have things that are tactical activities going on. You're going to have more strategic activities going on. But the whole goal is, everything we're doing is to implement some sort of business strategy. It might be market penetration. It might be a financial revenue, growth. It might be, we want to expand our products or get into new products. So the organization and its goals ties very closely in with portfolios, and we're going to delve down into that a lot more later. But what I'm bringing up here is your strategic plan. And I do find a lot of times that individual project managers that, might be new to the organization, they get, single focused on their project and what an objective for that project is, and they deliver on that project, but they don't really understand how it ties into the overall organization. Every project that we do, and I know we've had the whole conversation about charters, etc. You want to make sure that you understand what the expected outcome is. You want to understand how it relates to your organizational strategy, because there's always going to be competing demands. I know, in my many conversations with Steve over the years, he has unlimited resources and can do every single activity that anybody ever asks all the time, right?
I wish.
I wish, in my dreams, right?
Yeah.
Unlimited money, unlimited resources, unlimited time, and the reality is we don't. We're very limited. Every organization has those constraints. And your strategic plan for the organization is supposed to help you manage those constraints and prioritize things that are more important. We'll use that AI example. In year one, do you put a vision out there that you're going to totally change the entire product from something that somebody has to configure to letting AI configure it for you? No, you're not. There's going to be a plan to get to that point. And you need to understand how your project ties in with those strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last piece of this, though, is every strategy. So let's flip it. I'm the project manager. I want to understand how my project helps achieve the strategy and organization. Senior leaders need to make sure that a strategy isn't just a dream. You have to put that strategy into some sort of executable plan. So the two have to come together. You can't just say, hey, I have a desire to go into AI, and not put anything together that's an executable plan for the organization to execute on. So it's really important that it works both ways. Strategy is great, but without execution plan, it's not going to happen. Execution in projects is great, but if it doesn't deliver to the organizational strategy, did we waste those resources and money and time? So it's a really important thing for everybody to understand. Hey, Steve, do you,
Yeah.
I mean, from Project Insight standpoint, you guys go through some sort of, planning effort every year, right?
Yeah, well, usually we go through every quarter.
Okay.
We're going to be trying to work on what our goals are. And then obviously we also have input from customers, which there's a proportion of resources that we apply towards what we want to do that is not necessarily a customer driven thing. And then there's a
Mhm.
portion of resources that are available for the customer onboarding and things like that.
Yeah, and so you kind of have a more of a iterative,
Yeah.
strategy, as you go every quarter, but you also have a roadmap, and kind
I
of
mean,
move
that's what
along.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. We'll decide, okay, on the roadmap, what are the couple things we want to do? And then of course the roadmap is constantly being updated.
absolutely. And we live in such a world of, technology changes so fast
Mhm.
that, I know I've had people struggle with trying to put together something that's a 3-year plan. I'm like, it can change. It can change, and we're going to talk about that too. But having some vision for your organization to move forward with is super important. If there's no vision, and we don't think strategically, what will happen? I mean, you're going to end up with projects that are happening that senior management don't know about, right?
Mhm.
And then they might get upset because we pulled resources off of something else. You might have customers that are unhappy because, they've been asking and asking and asking for these enhancements. And because you've got so many projects happening that weren't planned per se, the key enhancements aren't getting delivered. So your clients might be unhappy. The project teams won't be connected with the customer, meaning, there's a disconnect with where the market's going and where, they're trying to deliver to. Did you ever have a project where, and we probably all know this term, I can toss it out, where the scope changed so frequently by the client?
Yes.
And whose fault is that?
Well, I would say it's, if you're the project manager, it's your fault for not managing the expectations correctly with the customer,
Right. And
right?
to my point.
I got a point on that.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, I got it right.
Oh,
It's
okay.
your,
You passed the
Yeah.
test.
Document the change. Documenting
but
change.
Well,
yeah.
again, to the last slide where we're talking about, strategy without execution without strategy, if the project manager doesn't understand where the organization's trying to go and where the client's trying to go, you're never going to be able to manage a lot of scope creep, because when that project is initiated, you've confirmed with the client what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. And you also have tied in with, hey, is this something that we as an organization want to put resources on, and how much resources? And if we let that scope creep happen, then, the strategy doesn't get executed and the customers aren't happy.
Yeah.
And so it is really incumbent on the project manager to manage the expectations of all of the stakeholders.
Well, and then you know what you're describing can happen at a higher level, even meaning, like, I think you even have their pet projects on there, or maybe there's projects the management team doesn't even need to know. I mean, if you're a larger company and you have a lot going on, the senior managers might want to accomplish too many things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And where I see people fall, I don't want to say fail, I'll say fall, is they forget, even though they know resources are not unlimited, but then they have some idea and they just go and do, that's those little pet projects, and not realizing the downstream impact to what they just did. So I have this pet project. Oh, I'm going to pull Michael off of this one, and I'm going to have him. It's just going to be an hour, right?
Oh, I know. Well, everybody wants to be optimistic.
It'll just be an hour, and I've had that happen before where I'm trying to deliver to a client's expectation. I called up one of our developers, and I'm like, well, are you going to be able to get this done this week? And he's like, well, I got pulled off onto this project by our CEO. I'm like, why?
Mhm.
And I'm like, did you even question the CEO and say, do you realize I'm working on this project for our largest client and you're asking me to do this? But he went because he wanted to make the CEO happy. And he spent like 3 days on something that he shouldn't have. I ended up calling the CEO and I'm like, did you realize you've asked him to do this? And he goes, oh no, he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So that even senior managers, they don't necessarily ask, and the people that they're, that are doing the work won't necessarily want to push back, especially in a situation like that. So now you've wasted 3 days worth of effort, and neither initiative gets done. So having that communication and ensuring that we constantly are thinking about what is on the roadmap, what is in our strategy, and working as hard as we can to execute on that. And the last little comment on here is, as an organization, we need to make sure the most important projects are given every opportunity to succeed.
Right.
And every time we digress from that, we're potentially impacting the longevity and the success of the company we work for.
That's heavy.
And I don't want anybody to do that for you, Steve.
Yeah.
But that's where
True,
this
though.
is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it does illustrate the importance of just knowing what the big picture is. And then I guess if you're a PMO leader, making sure all your project managers and all are aligned in the effort, right? I mean, because a lot of times I think unless the senior leadership have project management background, they tend to be just like, I just want this to happen.
Right.
And project manager, actually, I mean, you don't want to be negative Nancy or anything like that, but you do have to let them understand what the full ramifications are, especially for really high value projects like that
Yep.
cost a lot of money.
And the communication is more like, for this to happen, these things needs to happen.
It's just a factual conversation, like Diane mentioned, right? It's just, do you have the skill set to have that conversation to say, if this, then that, right? If you're going to, bring this resource away, we will be delayed elsewhere. So
right.
But imagine
priority.
you're doing that at this project over that project, million.
Oh.
This is, what happens at the project level of, hey, I got a resource pulled, which costs tens of thousands potentially of labor. If you were to do the same thing at a project level, that might be millions, right? So, and maybe the executive doesn't realize what they're doing. So.
And most of the time they're not even thinking about it from that perspective.
Yeah, right.
And that's it's unintended consequences, right?
Right.
They think they're doing a good thing, and but they're not realizing, and we all do that. It's not just senior management, we all do it. And we just, the habit we need to break is not reacting, and being more thoughtful and deliberate with the actions and the activities that we choose to move forward with, and making sure we understand those dependencies. And that kind of brings us into the whole concept of the projects and programs. So good segue, people. So when we're talking about projects and programs, the biggest difference is those programs have dependencies for us to deliver the overall objectives. They have a single objective. Each project may not deliver anything, but in combination, those projects together deliver an objective that is valuable to the organization. And it helps manage those resources, and having those interdependencies, and having a tool like Project Insight to kind of articulate and show you those dependencies. So if one dependency slips, how does that impact everybody else? And were you going to show that here, Matt, or?
Sure. Yeah. Here what we're in currently is a project report within Project Insight. We have this one broken down into the actual program itself. So these projects are grouped into their programs. So again, kind of to the point of, some of these might not do anything on their own, but together, that collectively, they're going to get something done for us. Just like all of the reporting in PI, I can right click and get the columns set that I really want to see, or just kind of drag and drop, this is the particular project name. To the other point here is, if you want to see this over time, you can look at this on one of the cross-project Gantt as well. So this one is broken down into each of those programs. You can see the individual project milestones throughout this life cycle of this project, right? With the diamonds, you can click into this and engage and even, contact Megan, who's the primary person on Teams right here, just by letting them know, hey, what's going on with this update, because, we should be here, but we're not quite. Interdependencies can also be visualized right here within Project Insight, not only connected, but visualized directly through the reporting as well. So
awesome. That's great. Yeah, I love the whole aspect of tying the different projects together, and I know Project Insight well enough to where it's like you make one change and that will flow through all of the projects within that program. If something is delayed or even accelerated, it gives you an opportunity to see where you might be able to accelerate things as well.
Yeah, it's nice that you can just click in if you want to get into anything within that specific project, right? Within that task list, something, is completed earlier and there is that cross-project dependency. Now we're agreeing for our next batch of work, right? In a different, a flight of work even. So
yeah, how often do we get to accelerate work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not nearly enough, it feels like. So
yeah, with a good schedule and good dependency, tracking, that is very possible.
Yeah.
It is very possible.
And all of this does start at doing a good job with your projects. Like a lot of companies that before we start working with them, they might have projects all over the place and multiple different tools, like maybe Jira or DevOps, and then stuff in spreadsheets. And then it's harder for this doesn't like do your program management for you. No tool really is going to do your program and portfolio management. They're just going to help you put the pieces together.
Right.
And obviously we're always working hard at making the tool do more things for our customers to make it easier and easier. And that's literally our job and our vision, is to make your work life easier through automating your job with project management tools. But again, like people think, oh, I'll just get a tool and then somehow now I'm going to have a portfolio. So there's a lot of work there. That's just not, the tool is just helps get
you
it
remind me of a situation that happened many, many moons ago, when this was before a lot of these project management tools were out there. But to your point, where there was projects going on everywhere, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 300 people in the IT organization and the technology organization, and they couldn't figure out why things were just not getting done. And so after some analysis, it turned out they thought they were working on like 10 projects. Well, it was 10 priority projects. And after doing some, interviewing with all the different teams and everything else, not all 300 people, but the different teams, it turned out to be literally like 300 projects going on, because they only counted the ones that were greater than like $250,000 worth of cost. So anybody that had a project that was $10,000, that nobody paid attention. They just
was
added,
just greenlit and added to the list.
Yeah, they just went
active
work. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, we had 300 projects with 300 people. No wonder nothing was getting done.
Yeah.
So
I think to Steve's point, though, he's spot on, where a tool doesn't solve it, right? You're still coming in here, you're managing the milestone as a diamond based on when it's going to occur. The nice part about having something like this in play is now that milestone is changed within this cross-project Gantt, or within a task report, or within my resource allocation planning. So if I'm looking at my team specifically, I can drill into the same bandwidth, right? It's all connected with that one move, as opposed to let me send an email and a Teams and a notification. So,
or do what I had to do that went to figure out that there was 300 projects going on.
Interview.
This is like amazing.
People.
Total efficiency gain. Right.
Exactly.
Well, but getting back to just doing the projects themselves well, you would be surprised how many clients that we have that maybe they're just getting started in project management, but some of them don't put effort on their tasks. They don't take the time to think, well, how many hours is this really, and all that. And if you do, then you get all those benefits. It's not really that much work to to go that extra level to say, okay, this is how much effort we think this task is and how long it's going to take.
Yeah, a lot of
If
times
you
people
go,
are just afraid to make an estimate because they're afraid to be wrong.
well, it's going to be wrong. I mean,
It
it's almost,
is. You're
the
exactly
goal is
right.
to be close and then allow the deviations between things. Some you'll be overestimating, some you'll be
Mhm.
underestimating. But if you just go for it and get something on paper, then you can learn, right? But
Right.
if you never take the step, then
And
you're
all
never gonna
and
know.
and all these things that you're talking about, these are the value of having a strong project manager on the team, right?
Yeah,
They're looking at that all the time. They're tweaking the estimates based on conversation and knowledge and follow up and experience, and
mhm,
so it's a constant exercise that a project manager needs to do every single day. That is their job, and when you're talking about projects versus programs, and you just added another layer where now it's not just my project I have to think about. I have to think about my dependencies with those other projects that are all part of the same program, because one person can't succeed without the other person succeeding. So you really have to kind of change your mindset and now look a little bit beyond what may be your direct responsibility, and see how you're impacting others.
yeah.
And if you're doing that well, then you're going to have a high probability of
Yeah, and
success.
we have a great comment from the audience. Brigitte, thank you. It says, if you fail to plan, she says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'm
Yep,
sure we've
absolutely.
all heard that. And planning means replacing random by error. So,
Yep, absolutely. And that was, to the point earlier about being more deliberate and not being
mhm.
reactionary. And you'll be better. I had another comment somebody had said to me once. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up.
Oh, definitely.
So don't always feel like you have to react. Anyway, so program managers have a little bit different responsibility. If I'm a program manager, so I'll be a project manager, and I have added responsibility in a program to make sure I'm paying attention to my dependencies. But a program manager, that might those project managers might be reporting in through, has the added responsibility of making sure the benefits are realized. And what we mean, remember how we said that each project may not bring a benefit, but once you bring all the projects together and they all get delivered, then you're going to see that benefit with the organization. And that's a really key term for everybody to start understanding. It's, did I realize the benefits I expected in a
Right.
efficiency endeavor? Did I gain these efficiencies in a product enhancement? Did I get more sales?
Right.
What are the benefits that we expected out of that program? And having that responsibility to measure and track it is one of the big differences.
Well, and I think getting back to that, if you're in between, let's say you're running the PMO and your executives want to do X, Y, and Z. Sometimes they know what the benefits they're expecting are, and other times maybe you need to help them identify them and document what they really are. And let's talk about like the AI, right? We're gonna introduce AI. We have a program. We want to introduce AI into our organization.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect a normal benefit would be that you're going to have some kind of cost savings because you're going to improve efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to quantify that ahead of time will help, because then at the end you'll be able to measure it. And you can have a whole webinar on that too, because
Again, it's planning,
I know.
right?
Well, I mean, there's projects that maybe increase your revenue. That's probably an easier one to measure. But these other projects that maybe are looking for efficiencies, that are maybe you're trying to you have a program that's aimed at improving your customer satisfaction. That's a lot more difficult to measure.
Well, yeah, and a lot of companies have those NPR scores or net
Yeah. Well, that's
net
for
Yeah.
software is
yeah.
easy, but
But
you know,
well, net promoter score.
yeah.
But you're right. And one of the challenges organizations have is not allowing the project or program manager to measure the results after the project or program is done.
Well, usually
You
you're
know,
pulling the project manager to the next project.
the
You
next
don't have
project.
time to do
So
that
Yeah.
part of
so
it.
so organizations never get the feedback that they really need because we not measured things well. So that's a whole nother conversation with regard to, advanced levels of project manager or program management expertise. It's, understanding whether or not you actually saw the benefit. And one
Delivered.
one that I see a lot on software implementation is if you're rolling out a product, let's say, you're rolling out Project Insight to an organization that has, 50 people. Well, if you roll it out to the first 5 and you never see the remaining 35 people leverage the tool, did you really succeed?
No, not in that situation.
Right. I mean, and some software companies or some companies are based on number of seats that are sold. So you're not going to see that revenue, until you get all 50 on board. So there's a lot that we should be thinking about, and that's going to kind of roll us right into the whole conversation of portfolios, but we should be thinking about beyond just the project itself. Again, just kind of reiterating on program management, one of the key differences between project and program management is the management of those dependencies and still being able to deliver on time and making sure that everybody's working in a coordinated way to deliver and not just delaying things ignorantly. I don't want to be the person on project A not realizing that one task 4 is impacting the start of project B. So I need to know that, and I need to, understand that, and my team needs to understand that.
Yeah, and the good thing is Project Insight does do cross-project dependencies.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do recommend is make sure you don't limit the dependencies to like your milestones and don't crisscross your project too many times.
Oh, yes. That's probably just organizational skills.
Yeah. Well, it's tempting.
Hmm?
It's always tempting.
Oh, I know. Well, it's like an Excel when you do a circular calculation. Oops, right. I just got all screwed up. But anyway, so the next couple of slides just kind of talk a little bit more about how you take all these projects and realizing the benefits, and you're going to have a vision and you're going to have a set of projects in a program that are going to be put together to achieve that vision. But we all know that things change, right? And what do you do as a program manager when things change? Do you stick to the plan and not adjust? Or do you somehow look at how you should be adjusting? And the answer to that is probably obvious, is yes, we should be looking to how we do adjust because we want to attain the benefits. So even if you said, let's say project 1, project 2, and you get to project 3 and you realize, we're not seeing the benefit we were wanting at this point in time, of what we were doing. It's not meeting our expectations. So do we just stay on that path and go all the way to the end and, risk that the overall program is not going to meet expectations? No, we should be analyzing after project 3 and saying, what do I need to change? Do I need to add revise some of those subsequent projects or add a new project to ensure that we get to those benefits that we anticipated? And so that role, if the program manager, is key. Don't just blindly, execute on the, 6 projects that you planned. You got to be analyzing it all along the way and adjusting as things change, whether the market changes, whether, you lost a resource and now you have to, rethink things. Or guess what? AI is getting to be, more mainstream. So I need to accelerate, some of these projects and bring that in sooner because my competition is taking advantage of it. So there's all kinds of things that can change. And in program management, you're not just delivering to one thing. You have a vision that you're trying to attain, and you want to make sure that you're getting there.
Right. I mean, it might be, you might have 10 projects that you think you're going to do, knowing that maybe 2 or 3 of them you're not going to do. So sometimes the analysis might lead to completely not doing a project at all.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That I said, yeah, have there been times when you thought that you were going to do some sort of enhancement to Project Insight, and then it realized that maybe the market really isn't asking for it?
Sure.
So why do it unless somebody's really asking for it, or that you think it's going to benefit Project Insight by delivering it?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you might try to make a feature and realize that your approach is not working or whatever, and just start over or don't do it. Mhm.
If it doesn't sell, then it's a big it's a big indicator.
Well, we've definitely made features that no one, not that we've definitely made features that are really popular, and we've definitely made features that are not so popular.
Mhm.
So, but sometimes you just can't tell until you actually roll it out.
No, and then you do want to be able to have some lessons learned and kind of, take that back. And to your point, Steve, about, doing your road mapping, on a quarter, your strategic planning on a quarterly basis, you can easily pivot before things get too ugly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, luckily, software is actually, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, software is it can be more flexible than a lot of other types of businesses. We're not launching a rocket into outer space with a satellite,
Right,
so
right.
changes a lot quicker and easier in software. But I also think that because of that, it's easy to not have discipline
True. That's
real
that's a very
quickly.
good point.
Mhm.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Just because you're doing things iterative doesn't mean you should be doing everything iterative.
No, I mean,
Um,
and I think because software's relatively new in the world, right? I mean, construction's been around for centuries, and software is a new thing, and then everyone thinks, wow, that look how fast software gets changed, let's apply that into everything else we do, right? But it doesn't quite always work that way.
no, it doesn't. Absolutely. And you have to be aware of your market and your industry that you're in too,
Mm.
and how quickly you can adjust. All right. So let's talk a little bit about portfolio management. Same kind of restrictions. We have limited time, money, staff, expertise, same type of thing. But let's take it even further from an organizational standpoint. I always like to describe portfolio management and um, make it analogous to a financial portfolio. Like you go buy stocks, right? You're buying, Ford and GE and Walmart and you're expecting those stocks to perform in different ways. Some might produce dividends, some might have a long-term, goal, some might have a short-term goal. Portfolio management from a project standpoint is basically the same thing. And a portfolio manager's role is like a portfolio manager's role for stocks. You're looking at the organization and maximizing your planning with a set of projects and programs over time. So you've got a lot of things to balance when you're a portfolio manager. And it's very different than a project or a program manager. A portfolio manager isn't managing the project. You got the project and program managers reporting in through you, potentially, right? You're looking at, if we deliver on this program and if we deliver on this individual project and we deliver on these other two programs, one might be about market share, one could be, reducing costs to help in our margins, another might be about acquiring resources to help launch us forward into the next 5 years. So there's a lot of varying factors that you have to take into consideration: high risk, low risk, short term, long term, existing product lines. Do we do new product lines? And how do you choose? How does an organization choose between all those various initiatives? And that's where portfolio management comes in. You're choosing your stocks, right? Which ones do you want to have perform? And are you okay with some low performers and maybe some high performers and a mix of things, and ensuring that they get delivered at a particular time? And I like to, an example would be, let's say I wanted to have a new product launch by January of 2026. That's our strategy. And the reason we want to launch by January 2026 is because we know our competition is doing something similar and their target is the end of 2026. So we want to get out to market first. So I'm going to, the organization's going to say, hey, if we do this, we should be able to grab market share, and it's going to be worth $10 million to the organization if we can get it out there by January of 2026. And the competition doesn't do it until, the end of 2026. That's $10 million that's being planned at a corporate level with the expectation that program is going to deliver on those benefits. So what happens if I'm late?
You may not make the money.
I may not make
You're
10
not
million.
realizing your benefits. Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to realize my benefits, and so this is how organizations should be looking at identifying how they're growing. So if the organization says, I want to grow 30 million next year, 10 or 30 million in 2026, 10 million is going to be because of this program. Where do I get the other 20 million? Too often organizations just say, we're just going to do a 10% increase. Okay, now we figure out how. So if you're really doing portfolio management well, you're looking at the initiative, identifying the benefits that you're going to realize, and then determining how much you think you're going to grow based on actual planned execution.
Well, and I would argue too, like I'll use a different example. Let's say you're a retailer, maybe you're Target, right? And you're going to decide, or do we want to launch our own coffee in our, maybe they already do this. I don't know. I don't go to Target that much, but they do sell food there.
Yes.
But at some point they decided to do that, and I wouldn't think that you would know the answer of whether you should or shouldn't. The portfolio would this is really a question. Would this be a portfolio move to say we're going to try to put food into our stores?
Walmart did, and Target probably was following them. There was probably more of my biggest competition is Walmart.
But wouldn't you need to roughly estimate what you think that the financial benefit would be? Roughly estimate how much it would cost you to do it.
Yeah.
Do a test run in a store.
Mm-hmm.
So all those are a lot of projects to do all that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What's my expected revenue stream? How does that compare? Am I able to do it at a better rate?
And your numbers are going to change after phase 1 of some of the testing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
How much revenue is actually lost by not doing it, right? Like maybe the effort in getting there isn't worth the squeeze on that. So
yeah, and again, this ties in the whole market research. So good organizations have a well-oiled machine where it's like that market research feeding, the strategy decisions, and also feeding what the expectation or the benefits that we are expecting to realize should be. So all that kind of plays together, and strong strategy organizations use that, and they don't just throw about a number and say, hey, 10% next year. Right. So one thing which also kind of helps articulate and visualize what a portfolio might look like is what I call a bubble diagram. Not I call it, but what a bubble diagram is. So in this particular case, we've got 2 programs and 2 projects. There's a revenue goal for them. And that's spread over 3 years. There's a cost associated to it. And then there's a net income. So decisions that are portfolio based aren't a simple linear decision, because it's not that it's just revenue based. It's not that it's just cost based. It's not that it's a net income based. Everything, has multiple tiers and multiple variables to have to consider. A bubble diagram helps put it in perspective. So in this particular one, the size of the bubble is the average revenue over 3 years. So whatever those 3 years were, divide by 3, so obviously D is going to be the highest cost and also the highest net income and also the highest revenue producer. You can also throw risk on here too. It just depends on the variables that you want to measure. B, on the other hand, is a lower net income, lower cost and a decent return, but C and A have a kind of a similar average. So if all of a sudden you have to cut something, what do you cut?
C or D.
Again, depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If I'm really wanting to get, maybe my goal is 100 million average over the next 3 years. Well, I could do D by itself. I could do C and A, or I could do, A, B, and C, and I'll still get my 100 million. So I can choose the programs and projects based on my goals of the organization as well, and maybe push some off. So the role of the project manager is very, or the portfolio manager is very different. And to do a good portfolio, you've got to gather the information about all the projects, all the benefits, all the costs, the risks, etc. And then look at your resources. What are, all those constraints that you need to consider? And this is typical project management activities, right? You're looking at all this, but then you have to have an evaluation criteria, like which ones do we keep, which ones do we not? That's probably more of a senior level, decision-making process, but you have to have a method or an approach for how do you choose which ones we're going to do.
Yeah, and I think organizations do this all kinds of different ways, definitely. So
yeah. Yep. And then, then you have to measure it on a regular basis, and see how you're doing. Because just because you thought that one's going to deliver $100 million goes back to my program chart where it's like, oops, something might have changed, so you're constantly evaluating how this portfolio is performing. So just like you're constantly evaluating your 401k, your stock portfolio, how is it performing? When do I decide to sell off a stock? When do I decide to buy a stock? It's a very similar process. So I look at the portfolio manager is really a finance person.
Yeah. Well, and going back to your bubble diagram, I would say that costs are usually more predictable, that you're going to have costs when you're thinking, and this is going to be $100 million to do something. Probably you're right. It's going to be at least that number, if not more. And then on the flip side of that, when you're trying to measure the benefit, that's a lot more challenging. Are you really going to get 160 million? So those are very difficult.
Maybe you need 2 revenue streams, so you do need 2 projects. So the one big one that gets your 100 million goal still isn't right, because you need to be able to expand and grow on that, right? So
right, and again, you might want to hedge your bets kind of thing and have 2 similar, but then that's added cost, and again, it ties in market research, organizational strategy and execution and delivery, bringing it all together to say, okay, how do we want to grow as an organization, and how do we want to manage our limited resources that we have? And again, the portfolio manager is a very different animal than the project manager, because they're not executing on any project. They're analyzing, evaluating, adjusting, working with the senior leadership to make sure that we're tracking to the strategy and the vision that we want to deliver to.
Yeah.
And my last little comment, since we have a lot of project managers and program managers on this call, I don't know if we have any portfolio managers. Regardless of your role, just remember that even if you're working on a single project, it's not unimportant. Your single project is important in the overall scheme of the organization. And if your twig, if your twig on the tree is successful, then it helps others succeed. If you're part of a program and those dependencies and you are successful and you deliver to those expectations, the program has a better chance of delivering to its expectations. And then, additionally, that one little twig might be critical in the delivery of a portfolio or a couple programs in the portfolio to ensure that we get that 100 million. Even it doesn't mean that the largest project is the most beneficial. It could be one of the smallest projects being the most beneficial. So understand your twig and how you fit into the overall tree and how you help the organization grow. And with that,
great advice.
We will have questions.
Yeah. Leave that open. If there are any, please feel free to use the chat.
Let's move on to the next
Delay on
slide.
that.
Come
Yep.
back to them if they are.
And in the meantime, you can also grab your phone out and scan the QR code. Again, you will be sent the certificate before the end of the week. This recording will be here and accessible also through that time to be able to get this, claim your PTU.
Nice.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. That was a good conversation.
It was
I
awesome,
appreciate it.
guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've got one more setup for this year, right? Which is mind blowing that the year is there as far as that's concerned. So we'll see you for change management concepts, as it does always change, or it can. But as far as topics, right? This is another time you can use the chat. Are there any topic suggestions for 2025 Project Insight Professional Development Series? So
Great.
Yeah, we're
Excellent.
looking forward to next year.
Yeah,
for
send an
sure.
email to marketing@projectinsight.com if you have any suggestions for PDU
Afterward.
webinars.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Follow us